Hello, everybody, and welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. We are in our guest segment of the show, and today we have a special guest representing the Fitchburg Historical Society. We have Adrian joining us, and today you're going to give us a little bit of the early history of Fitchburg.
Yes, I am, and thank you for inviting me to come again.
Well, yeah, we appreciate you coming and taking the time to get us caught up on some of this awesome history we have.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about early Fitchburg, but to do that, I need to back up a little bit and tell you something about what was happening in Wisconsin Territory before Wisconsin became a state.
Ooh.
In the late 1820s, Ebenezer Brigham, a pioneer businessman and politician, moved into the Blue Mounds area and became the first permanent settler in Dane County.
Oh, wow.
And why am I mentioning him? Because Mr. Brigham was from Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and his favorite place north of Shrewsbury was a town called Fitchburg, Massachusetts. So he is the one that suggested that Fitchburg Township be named Fitchburg. So
wow.
that's one of the firsts that I thought I would toss into this discussion.
So he's the reason we get all these calls from Massachusetts.
Right. And we still do today, thank
Right.
goodness.
All right.
And we're very happy to talk to them.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's how that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Another first that occurred was that population was expanding because the price of land was cheap in the Northwest Territory, and several things were happening in the eastern part of the United States that affected Wisconsin. A lot of it was immigration from Europe because of the potato famine. And also projects out east were being finished, like the Erie Canal. So the men that worked in construction moved west to get other jobs,
Sure.
and they headed for Wisconsin. In the 1840s, Wisconsin had a population of about 11,000 people, and by 1850, it was up to 305,000.
Wow.
That's how fast the immigration and move to Wisconsin occurred.
That is incredible.
Also, and part of that was, are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Wisconsin had an office to advertise their territory in New York City, and they recruited people from the steamship lines and from the area to come to the Wisconsin Territory because they needed population to qualify to be a state later.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how they did it. I don't know what their advertising techniques were, but Wisconsin did use advertising to recruit people.
It must have been pretty good advertising to get that many folks here.
It worked.
Wow. That's awesome.
So in Fitchburg, Fitchburg was first settled by John Stoner in 1837, and he began a farm, but he was only a part-time farmer. He lived in Madison during the week, and he farmed on the weekends. So the title of first permanent resident went to the Roman brothers.
Okay.
And they moved into Fitchburg in 1839, and their farmstead still exists today.
Right, still a familiar name around here.
Right, still a familiar name. After that, in 1840, William Quivey, another familiar name, moved in, and he started an inn at the intersection of current Fish Hatchery Road and County M.
Okay.
And that inn resulted in the territorial government in 1846. Before Wisconsin became a
Right.
state, to set up his inn in that area called Quivy's Grove to be the first political precinct and post office for Fitchburg.
That is awesome.
So that's, again, at the lower edge of the boundary of Fitchburg Township.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened in 1846.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, because more people were coming in and they needed a polling place, the territorial government set up an entity called the Township of Rome, which was a combination of the townships of Dunn, Oregon, and Fitchburg. And they had their political meetings at Mr. Quivy's location.
That's so cool.
In 1847, Fitchburg decided to break off from that, and they formed the town of Greenfield, of which Joseph Vroman, one of the original permanent settlers, became the first chairman of the town of Greenfield. And that was a successful town. They had the usual administrators, etc. But they had problems with the post office because there was a town of Greenfield in Milwaukee County, and the post office had difficulty delivering mail to the new town of Greenfield in Dane County.
I imagine at that time it's not so easy to divert the mail either.
Well, it took days or weeks to
bet.
get the mail out anyway.
Yeah.
So the post office required that the town of Greenfield in Dane County change its name. So in 1853, Greenfield became Fitchburg and has remained Fitchburg to this day.
That is amazing.
So, with that said, Fitchburg developed 3 neighborhood/business communities where population accumulated, and they tried to organize more completely to have an active town government.
Sure.
The 3 locations were, the first one was at Quivy's Grove, and it was called Oak Hall, down on the southern edge of the township. And they developed a stage stop where people stopped at Quivy's Grove Hotel Inn. It wasn't a hotel then. They stopped at Quivy's Inn, they got food, and at that intersection in the lower part of the township was the meeting of the Tin Road from Mineral Point, where the Tin Road would come into that area and then head east to Milwaukee. So there was a big exchange of passengers and people who stopped at Oak Hall, and it was called that because a long conference room made out of oak was built in that area. There was also a tavern. They had dances and entertainment, and a school developed in that area too.
So sort of a busy area for back then.
Yes, it was a very busy area for that time, but it was based on commerce and the fact that Quivy was known to be a good proprietor of his business, and he had a good reputation even into northern Illinois as being able to accommodate people that were traveling. The second location that developed was called Lakeview, and it was along a military road that was on the east side of the town of Fitchburg at the intersection of current Highway M and Highway B. And it was called Lakeview because at some point you could view Lake Wabeesa from that point. And again, Lakeview had the second post office, had an inn, and had a store and a blacksmith shop, and again, developed into a business community. The third location that developed into an active neighborhood was called Dogtown, And Dogtown was at the intersection of Lacey Road and Fish Hatchery.
So right about where we're sitting today.
Yes, approximately here.
Yep.
And it was called Dogtown for two general reasons. Nobody knows specifically the real reason, but they come up with two stories on how the name Dogtown came about. And there was a grocery store with a butcher shop, so they would throw old bones out for discard, and the comment was that the dogs would come up and get the bone.
Yeah.
The other story is that there were a lot of prairie dogs in the area because it was a flat plain, so that's why it was called Dogtown. But nobody really knows what the true answer is. There was a school that developed and a blacksmith shop, and the blacksmith shop wound up being a pseudo town hall until the town hall could be developed.
Yeah.
So, and as you know, the original town hall was a little bit further south of that, off of Fish Hatchery Road anyway. Fish Hatchery Road at that time was called Janesville Road because that's how you got from Madison to Janesville.
Sure, that makes sense.
All of this activity with these three community areas happened when the stagecoaches were running because oxen wagons were used for commerce and stagecoaches with horses were used to transport people.
Sure.
The map that I brought, which I hope you will get a chance to show people, the early days changed when the location of the businesses moved west from Oak Hall to what is the village of Fitchburg later. And I have that circled on the map to the west of Oak Hall. So again, that's my story of early Fitchburg. It involved quite a few people, as you can see. They went from 11,000 to 300,000.
That's an incredible amount of growth. It's just so neat hearing some of those familiar names that we still know today from way back when it all began. And this is just fascinating stuff. This map people can take a look at. It's actually here at City Hall currently. Also, I want to encourage people to go over to the library, check out the Fitchburg Historical Society. They have all kinds of awesome resources, books, photographs. You guys do great work over there. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this awesome information with us. And again, people go check out the Historical Society. And we just really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to wrap up the show.